What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the brand new women's Adidas Nemeziz 17.3 in the white mystery ink and coral colorway. So this is the first time that I'm reviewing a women's Adidas boot, at least as far as I can remember. And the reason why I'm doing it is, one, because if you are a guy, there is a simple sizing conversion that I'm going to explain in today's video that'll allow you to wear these. And two, unlike what Nike does with their women's boots, where it's pretty much just a different colorway with different sizing, no physical changes, while Adidas doesn't seem to have made too many changes in regards to the fit, there are some differences in regards to the construction of the upper, as well as the sole plate and stud pattern, and some aspects of the fit because of these changes that actually make this version of the Nemeziz 17.3 better than the men's variation. I'll explain why that is in today's video. So if you're interested in learning more about these, stick around, watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below in the description. That'll take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $80 retail price. So what exactly is different about this shoe versus the men's variation? If you guys missed my video on the men's variation of the Nemeziz 17.3, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen. You can go ahead and check that video out first, then come back and watch this one. Anyways, the upper for the most part is very, very similar in terms of its overall construction, except for one element. So the upper is still that agility mesh material, which is actually quite decent in terms of, I guess, $80 price point Adidas boots, which historically have not been the greatest in terms of overall quality. It's a mesh-based synthetic with a polyurethane top layer and a nice mesh liner on the inside as well. It's soft enough, it offers a decent touch, and honestly, it doesn't feel cheap on your feet, which is really, really important. Now, unlike the men's variation of the shoe, which has a one-piece enclosure, where basically there'd be elasticated material filling in the two sides of the shoe to give a one-piece construction, even though it's not true one piece, this has a construction that's more along the lines of what you would get from the Adidas X 17.3, where you can see there's an agility bandage right here that wraps across the top, and then attached to the bottom of that, you actually have a stretchy neoprene type material that runs through the middle, filling in the tongue area of the shoe, but it doesn't give a complete wrap. It just like the X 17.3, it just kind of fills in the gap, and it kind of ends partially down the side, like basically right about here. I'll open up the laces and put a little clip in so you guys see exactly what I'm talking about. But this gives a slightly different fit and a slightly different feel in the midfoot area. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's better or worse in comparison to the men's variation of the shoe, because quite honestly, there isn't that big of a difference once they're actually on your feet and you have the laces tied. But it definitely is an interesting difference that there's no real explanation as to why they've made those changes on the women's variation versus the men's version. But as a whole, the upper on the shoe is decent quality for the $80 price point. Now, if you guys watched my video on the men's variation, my main complaint with that shoe was not the quality of the upper, because I actually think it's quite good. It was the fit in the heel, and for whatever reason, we'll talk about this later during the on-feet portion of the video, these fit much better in the heel area. It doesn't have that unusually shallow fit. This has more of a normal feel. So just in regards to the fit aspect of the shoe, which I would argue is the most important aspect of any boot, I much prefer the women's variation over the men's variation of the Nemeziz 17.3. I actually said in my video of the Nemeziz 17.3 men's version that I wouldn't recommend it specifically because of the fit. That's the one downfall of that shoe. So if you really still want that particular style of boot with this upper, the women's variation is the way to go, in my opinion, because it does fit that much better. It's not an illusion, it's not something that I'm making up. It legitimately fits better in the heel. It's got the deeper fit that quite frankly feels normal, like it should feel on the men's variation, but it doesn't for whatever reason. Anyways, you have a nice synthetic suede liner on the inside, decent amount of padding, pretty much the exact same as what you'll find on the men's version in terms of what you can actually see, not necessarily feel. It does have a fully glued in insole, standard piece of foam mesh liner on top. Not removable, kind of typical of Adidas at this particular price point, but honestly not that big of a deal and kind of expected. You have an internal plastic heel counter, which again, fairly normal at this price point. And then moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern, that's where you have the more women's tailored, at least according to Adidas, in terms of the modifications that they've made. This is specifically designed for women players, which Honestly, I'm not sure how a stud pattern or a sole plate could be more targeted towards guys versus girls or vice versa. I just think it's kind of a strange way of doing things, especially considering it's the exact same layout you'll find across the entire Adidas brand. I guess if anything, this is more along the lines of what you would get from the Ace line or the Copa line in terms of the studs. So instead of those half circle shaped studs, you have fully conical studs. They're very narrow in profile, and I guess the idea behind that is because girls aren't going to be as heavy as a lot of guys. The narrower profile to the tip of the stud is going to allow the studs to dig in a little bit more easily because they aren't as heavy, which I guess does make some sense, but is that really going to translate into better traction overall? If you're a girl, I would argue no, but definitely an interesting idea from Adidas. Some of the studs have more of a triangular shape, these two at the base and then the one in the middle, but for the most part it's the same layout you'll find across the entire Adidas brand, so expect very similar performance for the most part. As far as the sole plate is concerned, it's not a sprint frame like you'll find on the higher end 17.1 or 17 plus models. I don't believe they make a 17 plus in the women's, but they do make a 17.1 women's Nemeziz that does have this stud pattern on a sprint frame. So that's kind of interesting. I'd be really curious to try and get a pair of those in to see how those would compare to the men's version, being that it is a high-end shoe. So if that is something you guys would be interested in, leave a like on the video or let me know down below in the comments. But anyways, this particular sole plate, it's very much like the men's variation in that it's flexible in the forefoot area, but the midfoot and heel is just awkwardly stiff. And that's kind of my main complaint with this takedown model. Same thing for the men's version, is that it's just too stiff in the wrong areas. So the midfoot should have some give to it, but it just feels really just unnecessarily stiff, I guess is the best way to put it. But overall, it's interesting in terms of the modifications that they have made. And again, to me, the big difference here is the fit in the heel, which is a dramatic improvement over the men's variation of the Nemeziz 17.3. The only other thing to talk about here in regards to performance aspects of the shoe is, of course, the weight. And in a size 10.5 US women's, which is pretty much the equivalent of a men's size 9 US, these guys weigh in at 9.4 ounces, which is actually 0.4 ounces more than the men's variation in the equivalent size. Not sure where the little bit of extra weight comes from, but it's a very minor difference. Not necessarily something you're going to notice on feet, but as a whole, it's also not a super light shoe at the 9 ounce mark. So if that's something that you're expecting, something you will get from the higher end Nemeziz models, you're not necessarily going to get that at the $80 price point, so keep that in mind. As far as the look and colorway is concerned, obviously it is different from the men's variation in that it's not white and black, it's white and coral, which is basically like a bright orange color. You have it in the laces as well as all the Nemeziz decals on here, because there's no actual agility bandages aside from this one right here. It's all just kind of imitation printed on top to give it the look of having the agility bandages as well as the torsion tapes where it actually says Nemeziz. But actually, I think the colorway looks quite good. You have this blue color as an accent, which is what they call mystery ink in the Adidas stripes right there. The Nemeziz branding going down the back. And then of course the stud tips are in that blue color as well. Let me know what you guys think of the colorway. I'll leave a little poll in the corner of the screen. Do you prefer the look of the women's colorway or the men's Dust Storm Pack colorway? I'd be really curious to hear your opinions. So make sure you vote in the corner of the screen. That's enough about tech specs though. Let's take a look at how these things fit and feel on feet. So I did swap out the laces on the right shoe for some white reflective SR4U replacement laces, just because I thought it looked a little bit more simple. The tongue portion is obviously white in color, and I more often than not tend to prefer the look of the shoe when the laces are the same color as the tongue. Not that the orange ones look bad, but just a personal preference thing. Anyways, if you guys are interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description, so be sure to go ahead and check that out. Putting them on, pretty straightforward, of course, given that it is just a central lacing system. And for those that are wondering about the actual fit of the shoe, being that this is a women's colorway or a women's version, because there are some differences here, the fit does not seem to be impacted in terms of the overall shape of the shoe. It's not a more narrow fit. It's pretty much the exact same shape based on what I can tell. So it's not narrower, it's not wider, it's not lower volume or higher volume. It's pretty much the exact same shape as the men's variation. The only difference here is going to be the fit in the heel, which again, I'm not sure exactly why that is. I would presume that it has to do something with the sole plate. And two, the sizing is of course different, which I'll explain in just a second. So here's a look at the shoes on feet. And you can see that they fit pretty much perfect. Women's shoe, I'm a guy. I'm sure a lot of you guys have already pointed it out in the comment section. But basically all you have to do to go from a men's to women's shoe or vice versa, it's a difference of 1.5 sizes. So normally I would wear a men's size 9 US in this particular shoe. So in order to get the equivalent women's size, you go up 1.5 sizes. So from a 9, you go 9.5, 10, 10.5, 1.5 sizes up. And that is the exact same sizing. And that's how it works for Nike as well as Adidas. Very, very straightforward. That's all you have to do. So if there is a women's shoe that you have your eye on, that's the way that you would go about getting the right size. Go up 1.5 sizes. And if you're a girl and you want to wear a men's shoe, just do the opposite. You go down 1.5 sizes from your women's size. So that's the way that works if you were confused. It's pretty straightforward once you have it all figured out. And as far as the way that these fit and feel on feet, they're actually pretty comfortable. The material that they've incorporated for the upper here, this agility mesh, it's soft enough, it's comfortable enough, it doesn't feel stiff or plasticky on your feet, it doesn't have that cheap sensation, which is great. I don't love the way that this collar looks, but it does fit quite nicely, and the tongue doesn't really bunch up across the top of your foot either, which is very good. And again, the fit in the heel, that's the big thing here. So much better than the men's variation. You have good heel lockdown, the depth is proper, and it just feels good. You feel secure in this shoe. They don't necessarily feel cheap. The only thing that I don't like is the sole plate, which I think is a little bit too stiff, but for the most part, it's something that you can live with at this particular price point. But that's pretty much it all is in terms of what there is to talk about. I guess the width of the shoe, they're kind of an average width, not super wide, definitely not narrow either. It's a material that isn't gonna stretch all that much. There'll be a little bit of give after some wear time, but as long as you don't have super, super wide feet, you definitely shouldn't have too many issues. The only reason why they can look wide on most people's feet is just because the sides of the upper come up, they're a little bit lower. They don't come up quite as high, which ends up leaving a bigger gap through the middle of the foot, which gives the illusion of the person wearing them having really, really wide feet, even though that's not necessarily the case. So not a super tight fitting shoe, but not a super narrow fitting shoe, not a super wide fitting shoe either. So again, I think it's one of those boots that will fit most people. That's pretty much it in terms of the fit though. And that's it for this review, guys. If you guys are interested in a pair of these for yourself, again, you can click the little eye in the corner of the screen or the first link down below in the description. That'll take you to the review page on my website where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $80 retail price. If you have any questions regarding this shoe, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.